What's going on, everybody? Today is April 25th, 2024. You're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we have Jyunmi, Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. And the goal of today's conversation is to talk about sort of a fun conversation, but in it, I think we're going to really sort of dig deep into where current AI technology is and perhaps where it needs to go. But the concept of this show is, and I've already forgotten the name of the company. Does anybody know the name of the company that this quote came from? Shoot, I have it. It's in the show notes. I'll find it. It's okay. But I want to give more credit as credit due. So there's an AI video creating software tool, let's call it. I'll find the name in a second here when somebody else is talking. But they basically had a quote on their website that said, "We're trying to be part of a solution that would allow an AI movie to win an Academy Award within 7 years." Okay, so let's do the fast math there. It's 2024, 7 years, 2031. Okay, that's all their statement said. And it just, in looking at their website and looking what they were doing as far as AI and their video and what they were doing for, wasn't sore, it was different. I thought, oh, that's a fun statement. You know, when a statement just captures you and you're like, oh, where does that go? And you kind of go down all these that, like Jyunmi, you were just saying before we were live, like how far down the rabbit hole do we want to go with this? So in discussing this show and just to set up the premise of the show, and then we'll jump into it, is we said, okay, well, look, there's many different types of Academy Awards. So let's go, for our purposes, let's go even farther and say, no. In 7 years, what would it take for an AI movie, and I'll give you some more parameters, to win the best picture in 7 years? With that, because they did give a couple more parameters. I shouldn't say they didn't. They said, I think it was 2 to 3 writers. Okay, so 2 to 3 humans, let's call it, and no other staff. Literally, the movie has to be created with AI plus 2 to 3 humans. Let's just keep it easy. Best picture in 7 years. So that's the premise of the show. In that, we're going to be talking a lot about where a lot of the technologies are today. How would you go about that if you knew that was the end goal? If you know today that you're trying to win a best picture in 7 years or less, what would you do? What kind of movie would you produce? Where would you go with this? There's a lot of things to be considered here to not sort of paint yourself in a corner. So with that, let me kick it over to you, Jyunmi, because you're sort of one. I won't say you're the only one, but you're sort of our one of our resident experts when it comes to movies and things like that. So don't go down the rabbit hole, Jyunmi, because I feel like you definitely could. Right. But give us sort of a high level of what you're thinking with this when we first proposed this idea. And I'm going to go look for the company while you do that.
All right. So, so the concept is fascinating to mill upon. 7 years is a huge amount of time in the AI space, but not necessarily the filmmaking space, right? And the industry. And we've already identified that there is a gap or delay when it comes to industries, groups, people, society adapting to changes in technology and specifically in AI. So I think that's something that we'll have to account for. But in the broad strokes, do I agree that in 7 years, an AI movie could win Best Picture Oscar? Yes, I think it can. I think it'll be very difficult. I think some of the stars might have to align. Pardon the pun. But yes, I think it is technically possible. And I'll just drop the TLDR on this. I think the way they can do it is winning best motion picture by making an animated film. And Brian, you had touched upon this a little bit before the show, and I was like, "Oh, you're getting there. You're getting there." Because an animated film, like the points you were saying, is suspension of disbelief, right? Oh, it's animated. Okay, we're not too worried about it. We're not worried about actors and crew and all of those kinds of things, which I think would make it far more acceptable to the industry as a whole as an animated film. Right? There's still going to be problems, don't get me wrong, but I think just the general take from the industry would make that a little more palatable So that would make it a little easier for it to happen. Now, bear in mind, uh, only 3 animated films have ever been nominated for Best Picture.
Dominated. Yeah.
Yeah, nominated. No one has ever won, but I still think this is their best angle.
Okay.
And
What are the
I
3?
will say, I would have voted for any of these nominated films: Beauty and the Beast, Up, and Toy Story 3. All fantastic films, great stories, massive achievements in technology, like specifically Beauty and the Beast. Just what definitely have won like the technical Oscars and things like that. And that was back in '91. So there is precedent for getting an animated film to Best Picture. Less likely, but less hurdles for the filmmakers to actually do.
Okay, so I just want to add this real quick that it was Up and Toy Story 3 were the other two that got nominated, and that was in 2009 and honestly 2010. But now here we are 14 years later, and there hasn't been another one nominated. I don't know, Jimmy. Is this really a path forward,
that's probably because they're definitely leaning into the best animated feature, a category specifically created because so many more feature film, high quality feature animated films were coming out. So they created an entire category. Now, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, so I'm not going to break down how the Academy works, in detail and things like that. But I think if we want to do broad strokes on this topic, how they could do it in 7 years, there are some hurdles that you're going to have to adjust for. Number one, there's technology, the technological hurdle. You have to identify what the components are that you would need, and do we have those right now? Number two comes down to the limitation of your human component. What kind of hurdles is that going to apply to your process? And number three, it's just the overall Oscar process. There's a lot of stuff that goes into getting one nominated for an Oscar, and number two, what it was required to even win one. So beyond just the quality of the film, it has to have acclaimed review. Millions of people will have to have seen this film in theaters or in whatever their formats are. And to make it wildly financially successful, or to at least a certain level. And then there's a matter of getting all of your films watched and the campaigning for with the Academy, so that all of the Academy members can vote to nominate it and eventually vote for it to win. So there is a lot of different levels of investment here. Now, I'm sure we're going to focus on the technological side of things, right? Does AI tools exist that can fill in all of the components for filmmaking? If we approach it from an animated film, we've got a couple of key ones that'll work for us.
So before we move on to that, I just want to highlight that the marketing campaign of being able to do a personalized marketing campaign to the entire Oscar audience to get people to watch, and that technology is starting to exist and is super relevant to our business audience, right? So that technology could actually be really exciting in future, not just fully AI animated, fully AI created movie, but also the movies that are going to win all the other categories in the coming years. Interesting.
I love that point, Beth, because in this hypothetical, 7 years, you got to go not only, I want to strategically do this. Maybe I want to go animation. By the way, my answer wouldn't be animation. It'd be some sort of a hybrid. I think Life of Pi, I mentioned that before we went live, The Shape of Water. I think these are maybe good examples of a hybrid where you still don't have to deal with uncanny valley. It's not supposed to be photorealistic, but also it's not animation, and there might be an angle there towards the Academy. So there's that side of it. But I love what you said, Beth, which is that not only do you have to think about the story and the things like that, you have to think about what abilities AI will bring to the table to help you get there, even if they don't exist today. And I think you brought up one that's totally relatable to, that's not the word I wanted, but to our business audience or people listening, which is that in time, I think definitely within 7 years, and let's be honest, it would have to be in like more like 5 as you start to get buzz and things like that, there will be more and more ways to produce fully customizable ad campaigns that go very niche and targeted and stuff. And I am sure that would have to be part of, if you only have 3 people, one of them is going to have a solid understanding of how to use AI to get the most out of that. I think personally, you know, who knows where a Netflix will be. Netflix has had tons of Oscar winners. I don't know if they've had a Best Picture, but if you look at Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and different ones like that, they've had films that have reached very high. I don't know, Jimmy, you would know better than me if a Netflix film has won Best Picture, but I know they've been close in foreign films and things like that. So even that's a little bit of a rub, right? Jimmy, we see that like, oh, shouldn't it have to be in theaters? Shouldn't it have to be able to have a box office? And so what you'll see is like these Netflix and stuff to say, okay, fine. And they place it in 20 theaters and they put it out on Netflix and they're like, check. And it meets the requirements of what the Academy needs and stuff. So while you're playing those politics, what AI can you use to help you play politics? Because you got to get in good. It's an old thing. It's not going to change in 7 years. If anything, when you say, like, I don't know, Andy, you haven't jumped in, but when you say there's going to be, in fact, maybe more pushback against the idea of 3 people creating 3 people, that's a Goodwill Hunting that only had Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and one other person to help them out. And they created Goodwill Hunting, let's say, right? Like, I don't know, Andy, what's your take on that? You know, the whole thing. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I thought it was very interesting, Jyunmi, that you focused on animation. And I want to like kind of rewind back to the history of the insertion of animation into otherwise normal productions with humans and so on. For example, Mary Poppins, go way back. So you have animated characters who interplay with the live human actors. Then, fast forward to Roger Rabbit, you've got a more seamless kind of blending of the animation and the humans being inserted into the animation. Now, in the future, in the very near future, I think it's going to be much, much easier to take animation, which is computer generated imagery, and get to, I don't need to hire the actor to do it anymore. I can put in a photorealistic and very convincing human into the scene, voiced well and so on, as if it will look like you did it as a filmed production. But you're going to blend those two together, and then you're blurring the boundaries between animation and live production with actors. And so I think that there's nothing to prevent a really good story and really good directors and editors from creating a full feature film, irrespective of whether it ever appears to have an animated character in it. It is, in my view, by definition, an animation when you're using computer-generated imagery. Now, would the Academy say that's an animated picture, or would they say this is a new category, which is AI-generated? But then you're really awarding based on many of the categories that exist today, like best screenplay or whatever. So I really love the framework that you gave us to understand how this is progressing, both in respect of the past progression of technology, integrating animation into feature films, and then going forward, the very near-term eventuality that you'll be able to generate a full, apparently humanoid, real human actor, feature film, but all of it CGI.
Now, I think that's likely to be part of the capability in the 7 years. I don't think the Academy's voting for it. Like, I think the Academy is like, you used AI instead of human actors. It may be a brilliant movie. It may be amazing. It may involve our best beloved actors who are now their estate said sure. Right, you can put that. I don't think the Academy votes for Best Picture for that in 7 years. Personally,
and that's that part of that political aspect, right? It's what is acceptable in that community. Now, the Academy is made up of 9,000 different industry people, and whether that's actors and directors and whatnot. And something to point out is, to get a film nominated, the Academy members that vote on the nominations are Academy members that are from that particular field. So Best Director is nominated by other directors, right? Best Actor is nominated by other actors. Now, the final vote, whoever wins, that's everybody involved. But that's a key hurdle for acceptance, And Andy pointed out a really good point, in which I think is another hurdle that would have to be overcome, is the performances. The performances is the hardest part. You can clone someone's voice, no problem. You can, right now, you can tell it to give it certain inflections, certain cadence, explain what the scene is supposed to be, things like that. But that is going to be the hardest part to do without additional people. Now, the premise has been 3 people, but I think they had mentioned in the original parameters that it was 3 writers. Now, if it's just 3 writers, you're right, Brian. They need a whole other subset of skills just so that they know what is good beyond the writing. Don't get me wrong, the story is probably going to be fantastic,
right?
But, knowing what the greatest performance is, or how to put the film together, or what how it's going to be directed, all those kinds of things, that's something completely different. Now, if you had a writer and actor and a director, that makes it a little more easier to overcome those hurdles, because it's a suite of skill sets that can work together.
Okay. So I'm going to say, I think you have to have, I think for this to work, that has to be the case. And I'm going to throw one out there. I just went back and looked at the site. By the way, it was infinity.ai. If you want to go check them out, I want to make sure we're giving them props, because their idea, by the way, it also says now 10 years, but I swear it said 7. So I think they've changed it. I have to go to the Wayback Machine and go see literally 5 days ago and see if their website said 7 and not 10, or I'm just imagining things. Regardless, it does say 3 writers on there, and then it follows and it says with no actors, directors, or other crew. Okay, but we've diverted a bit from their because they also said any Academy Award, and that's way different. I think it's 3 humans. I think, and then it's up to that team of 3, kind of like the 1-person billion-dollar unicorn company idea. Or we said, okay, we think maybe you can do it with 3, and then we started in that show talking about, okay, well, who do those 3 people? What skills do they bring? Now, to what you were saying, Jyunmi and Beth, about I don't think the Academy will do it. Okay, we got to sweeten the pot here. I got to go get Spielberg and get him involved, right? Forward thinking director, beloved, won for Schindler's List, has been nominated many other times for Saving Private Ryan and other, but he's only won 1 Best Picture in his entire career, which is crazy. And that was Schindler's List. Okay, so you go and you say, hey, Spielberg, we have a really good storyboard here. We want to, and by the way, we've used AI to create the storyboard. We're going to just assume that we know that's possible. In 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, that's possible. Fully fleshed out storyboard with moving images, and we'll call those videos for people who don't need to call it moving images.
LTX Studio, we can do it now, man.
Yeah, and also we know you can throw voices on there, right? So we could present something, the 4 of us. I mean, I know that's too many, but let's just assume we could present something that's a pretty well oiled machine by the time you got somebody, let's say 3 years from now, you pull a Spielberg into it and you go, look, we think we have a shot at this. We think of a shot, but we know there's no chance that we're getting in the good graces of the Academy if we don't have a big name. Maybe it's a Spielberg, maybe it's I can't think of her name, the one that just did the Barbie movie, Gershwin. Jeez, Goodwin.
Greta.
Can't think of her name right at the top. Phenomenal director. Somebody like that, right? Where you get them and they're a little forward thinking. So I think you have to there's definitely politics here. I think AI can help with a lot of this, but AI isn't going to make humans be less human and unpredictable. And I think you have a definite roadblock there. Now, I do want to throw a couple of ideas into here because I had a very cool conversation with ChatGPT about this whole topic. By the way, we started the screenplay. So just so you guys know, I'm already ahead of y'all as far as this cream of the crop screenplay. And me and ChatGPT, we've really worked together on this. I'd bring you into it, but I can't spare the other people. So right now, it's a very closed set. Okay. Just me and ChatGPT, just me and the AI. So I don't ruin my chances here in 7 years. But no, in all honesty, this is what some of the things I thought these are good ideas. It said, because what I said is hey, where does AI have to go in order to make this possible? Not just what we have today, where does it have to go? And it came up with some good suggestions. It said, here's a breakdown of where we would need to see the most critical developments. Number one, natural language understanding and generation. AI's ability to write scripts that are not only grammatically correct, but also rich in subtext, emotion, complex character development needs considerable enhancement. 1,000%. Right? We're good at predicting the next word. LLMs can do that, but that's a far cry from writing very well, intricate, tugging on the heartstrings scripts. We've seen some fun examples, but I think, ooh, man, it's not quite there. Another one, visual audio realism in CGI. While opting for stylized graphics can mitigate some of the challenges, any realistic elements still need to avoid the uncanny valley. Advances in rendering technology, motion capture, AI-driven animation are necessary to create visuals that are either indistinguishable from reality or artistically compelling enough to transcend real-world comparisons. I thought that was fantastic. 3 more here. AI directed cinematography and editing. AI should be able to understand and execute complex cinematographic techniques that evoke special emotions in storytelling. I think that's very cool. If AI is able to in the future look at sort of a raw video and go, this is how you would approach cinematography, and I can do it on the fly. I can make it day, I can make it night, I can make it dark, I can adjust that. Like we see what the newer events is with doing the Mandalorian, and they use the expanse is what they call it, and that's that sort of big space, and it can change things in using the real 3D engines that they use for gaming. So we kind of know its processing power, but we know it exists. Emotionally intelligent music composition, interactive and adaptive storytelling. Okay, this is where I think this one is critical. What we were getting into, me and the AI, when we were having this conversation yesterday, was, oh, you can write this and you can start showing it to audiences, and very quickly, if you built it this way, start adapting to what your audience is in your previews, like when you're first showing it. And there's nothing stopping you from adjusting the movie with low budget and low time. If AI has created this, what's to stop you from getting feedback, lots of feedback, and tweaking the story until it's right? No reshoots, no going back to expensive scenes or on locations like you would have, or pulling back in actors or actresses who are no longer available because they moved on, or they've gained back the weight, or they lost the weight, and all these issues that you would run into today if you had to do really expensive reshoots or add-ons, and millions of dollars to a budget. If that all goes away, and now you can just get a core idea and then pivot and change it and mold it around how audiences are reacting and go, oh, we need a bigger scene here. I think that is honestly a great, cool idea. And I think it definitely enhances your chances of getting that best picture, because you would have created something that hopefully is not a mush, but is actually the best of all worlds. Okay.
Yeah. No, Brian, I'm 100% with you. That's why I said animation. Exactly what Andy is saying. Animation is a huge gamut. You can have photorealistic animation. You can have life-looking, animation, and you can have cell animation or traditional like Disney animation and things like that. There's all kinds of styles that you can apply. Mm-hmm. But the technology that exists right now allows you to mitigate all of those things that you were talking about, right? You can use Unreal Engine and like the virtual studio that you're talking about, where it's just all panels that are adaptive and even adaptive for depth of field and parallax and all of these other elements. And you can just rewrite that entire environment for whatever you need. The concept of adjusting your movie or having the time and flexibility or adaptability to adjust your movie based upon your surveying or your, your little think tanks on the film is immensely important and immensely cost saving, and overall improves will improve the, not necessarily the quality, but the acceptability of your film, and therefore make it more monetized, is because more people will like it and, and watch it and pay for it and things like that. It's just, when you were talking about it, the thing that popped in my head was the concept of the 4 chords, right?
4 what?
4 chords.
What's that?
So in music, right? Like you've got those standard 4 chords that are the basis of the vast majority of popular music out there. Why? Because it triggers things in a huge amount of people that are like, oh yeah, this is great. I like this music. It's easy to listen to. It's easy to have fun with. And so that kind of element or aspect, I think, from what you were explaining, can be totally applied to those films. And I'm not going to argue today, anyways. I'm not going to argue whether it should. We're just talking about whether it could. So because there's so many aspects to talking about the art.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, I'll take a quick pause there and say that Jen is 100% on board with going down the deep rabbit hole. She's like, bring them. She's like, call me Alice. Let's hit all the rabbit holes. And then she went on to say, can we see a DOS special interest series? I could listen to Jyunmi talk about movies all day long. Well, you're in luck, because Jyunmi and Beth are producing a umbrella series underneath the Daily AI Show. Remind me again, guys, what is the title to it?
The Sci-Fi AI Show, where movies will definitely be one of the topics.
The Sci-Fi AI Show. Okay, so it'll be more than movies, but you're in luck, Jen, because that's exactly what Jyunmi and Beth have been working on, and I believe it'll be coming out soon. Also, Jen, thank you, Greta Gerwig. It was just, So didn't want to interrupt, but just because Jen happened to mention that, and you guys, I know, have a plan to do that.
Let me take what you guys have just been talking about one step further, which is, Brian, you're describing a movie generator, like a very sophisticated AI 3 years from now, that's been tuned in every way to be able to write scripts, to generate the imagery, to edit them, to add the composition of scores and so on. And then it has the ability to rapidly revise those in response to feedback. You described a model where it's reinforcement learning from human feedback. So you have an audience in preview, they have the clickers and they're pressing the button when they're getting an emotion, and all of that information is being fed back to the movie generator. And then there's a second screening. What's that?
We're using GPT-4 vision to look at their eye and their facial.
Like clickers.
I just want to make sure you knew that there are no clickers involved here. This is all AI.
Okay, good.
Please continue.
Right. Heat maps, the whole
so
thing.
Now here's the next thing is, now think about the conversation you had with GPT-4 and how sophisticated the critique was, in effect, underneath its recommendations for what you would need to do in order to do that. Okay. You don't need to start with a human feedback loop. The AI generator is going to have a council of evaluators of that have been trained on human reactions and human predilections, let's call them. And it's going to refine that movie. So rapidly it generates a really, really great script, score, movie that's already pre-tested, in effect. And now you can get a little bit of human feedback on it, but it's going to be a winner more often than not. Why? Because it's been built by a super intelligence based on humans.
Okay, but we're now shifting a little bit, Jyunmi, I think, because we're now talking about a box office winner. Like, you're not going to be able to get the 9,000 Oscar voters in the room to have their expressions heat mapped or click however they would prefer. But yes, that technology already exists, and I would be surprised if the studios aren't using some form of that.
Yeah, you're signing something when you're signing your NDA about talking about the movie that you're previewing. It's probably also, by the way, we use your facial reactions, and I hope you're cool with that because we're mapping it from the front of the theater. Even in dark, we can do it. We know what you're looking. We know when you're bored. We know when you look away. We know when you jump, and we're using all of that feedback. Not just at the end of the movie. What did you think about the movie? And I thought it was okay. And it's like, man, you laughed through that whole movie. We saw it. Like, you love the movie, but then they don't want to admit it. I mean, my father-in-law would be that way.
Well,
my father-in-law will laugh through a whole movie and call it stupid at the end. You'd be like, you love that movie. And he's like, nah, it was pretty stupid. You would have to be able to get past that because you're not going to get him to admit he liked some silly movie out there. We need the facial reactions and stuff like that to see how that goes. I do want to say, too, just to throw this out there.
Recently, the context windows of large language models have gotten to the size where and they're multimodal, so you can give it a full-length feature film. Now, imagine that you have a highly tuned movie critic AI that's reading in all of the images and all of the script and so on from a real production. And it's going to do a critic. So this is just another $1 million idea from the Daily AI Show, which is let's get movie critic AIs. I want to have the movie critic AI tell me what I want to see, right? Because it knows which movies I like, and I've talked to it, and I've told it what I'm interested in, and it's going to go out and from its exhaustive library of all the movies that it's seen and its ability to critique them. It's going to nominate those ones that I should go look at next.
I love it. And I think, look,
with a caveat, as long as there's a discover mode, because the big kibosh I would put on that is you sort of get into your own little echo bubble, right? You don't explore and try new things or whatnot. But as long as there's an aspect for a discover, it's like, oh, hey, there are elements of this that we think that you might like that is outside of your normal preferences.
That's good. Yeah. That's the temperature, right? I want to raise the temperature on my recommendation engine from the AI critic.
Well, and that's correlation does not equal causation, right? If you are laughing at this, are you laughing at it because it surprised you and it was a new thing? Right. And therefore, the 5 movies that copy that are not going to get that same reaction. It correlated to that moment, but you don't understand the cause of why you had that reaction.
Which would be difficult. But listen, that's why this is still a human in the loop type project, because that would be difficult as of right now for AI to grasp. We are so intricate. We're so unpredictable as humans that there's a lot of subcontext that goes into what you just said, Beth, about, but why did they react? Just getting facial reactions would tell you there was a laugh there, but it might be laughing at you, not with you. And that might be actually poor for a movie. So if you just let AI run with it, you might end up with something that's actually worse because it was following the wrong path of reaction. And that's something that you would need humans, I think, to definitely be involved with. One thing I want to throw out is like, hey, let's not just stop with like, you have this movie. Let's remember, as of right now, this movie could exist in any language with perfect mouth synchronization and dubbing with all sorts of different things. So there can be a Chinese version of this movie. There can be a whatever version of this movie. Also, nothing to stop you either from getting the Zack Snyder cut, the Greta Gerwig cut, the Spielberg cut of it. If they're able to go in with simplicity and bring their understanding, and you give them the full 3-hour uncut version of a movie that needs to get down under 2 to be sort of in the range or whatever, there's nothing stopping from saying there's director cut versions, but not just director cut, which are typically just longer. Different directors who take a different approach and change. Like it went like we've seen this before where you take a song like Happy from Pharrell Williams, and if you put it in a minor chord and put it negative, there's a guy and put it slow. There's a guy on Twitter, TikTok right now who makes that sound like a very, very sad song. Same song, just adjusted, right? For tone and whatchamacallit. Okay. I know we're short on time. Can I pitch you my movie, guys? Can I just tell you where
we haven't let Jyunmi talk the whole time?
No.
All right,
it'll be a 30-second pitch because I have
elevator pitch. Let's go.
30-second. In a world. No, I'm almost done. We have a working title. It's called Through the Flames. It probably won't be that. Okay. But here's what we got. We have a near future world ravaged by wildfires. It's a firefighter movie. Shocker. The lead from the firefighters, known as the Phoenix Squad, is equipped with AI-driven gear and suits that enhance their ability to prove real-time tactical data. The story follows the seasoned firefighter, Jack, who struggles with the haunting memories that fire that claimed his brother's life. Jack's journey intertwines with Ava, an AI specialist and the daughter of the legendary firefighter who develops groundbreaking AI system named Prometheus. AI can predict fire patterns in unprecedented accuracy and even control the fleet of drones that can fight fires in hazardous areas, keeping human firefighters safe at a distance. But here's the pitch at the end of this. This movie is not just about firefighting, guys. It's just the scene. What this movie is really about is humans' eventual acceptance that there will be AI smarter and more capable. And what happens in this movie is Jack's younger brother is very pro AI, but Prometheus messes up, just like a Tesla car that doesn't know a baby's in a carriage and careens into a group of 10 people. It's the idea that AI is probably going to have to hurt and mess up in order to get us to a world where it saves thousands of lives. And Jack is torn as the firefighter, the rough and tough old school firefighter who watched his baby brother die, who was pro AI. And now in the climax of this movie, they're in a scene where Jack has a choice. Does he go with all his gut instinct and down this road? Or does he listen to the new advanced Prometheus that all his young rookie firefighters said that's superior? Does Jack go with the AI and potentially save his crew? Or does he go with his gut instinct, ignoring the AI and assuming that he knows better than all the tactical and takes them down this road? Where do we go?
Tune in to find out.
All right. That wasn't a 30-second pitch, but I mean, come on. This has got Oscar contender all over it. Subtleties.
And
stories.
You don't want none of that.
What's that, Jimmy?
I was going to say it's either it's Oscar contender or it's a movie like Moonfall, and you don't want any part of that.
What's Moonfall? It is.
Yeah. Don't worry. It's terrible.
It's not good. It's the
not.
other side of the spectrum.
All right, Jimmy, you wrap this up for us because I do feel like I want to give you the last licks on this one after my silly thing. By the way, that was all from the same conversation I had with ChatGPT because it started giving me suggestions, and I was like, let's see where this goes. It was fun.
Nice. I would I'd wrap up this concept of, can it be done in 7 years? I think it can. We see so many advances and the speed of those advances in AI that technically easily possible in 7 years to have a high quality film, right? I think ultimately the major hurdle will be people, right? It'll be the people factor, getting acceptance in the industry, getting acceptance from the fellow audience, and essentially getting over the gap between acceptance of AI in that space and view it as a legitimate art that's been created. Now, I think to reach that point is going to require a lot of work from a lot of people, right? And not just be rolled over or steamrolled by producers and studios and things like that. That'll definitely be a factor. But if on the surface, the steps that like CAA are taking with their vault, protecting actors, 3D imagery, their CG forms, essentially, their AI clones, and those kinds of steps that the unions are taking will help ensure that there's a proper place for everything here. But that's going to take a long time to play out. And I think that'll be the key factor. Technologically wise, absolutely. It'll absolutely be able to be done.
One
Right.
follow-up question. If we replace Best Picture Oscar with Best People's Choice movie, is there a shot?
Oh, 100%.
Fully voted on by the people.
100%. If it's a people choice, and any other, I shouldn't say any other, but most other non-Oscar setup type, awards, definitely. Technical awards, easily. Best animated film, easily. It's just really more about the acceptance of the technology and what kind of balance that's going to place with performers, with writers, with directors, with crew, and that'll be the key inflection point to see if it's possible within the 7 years. But technically, absolutely.
I know we're wrapping up. I want to say that this is not a studio produced movie. This is two outsiders whose story is like, we're the Davids taking on the Goliath, and look what we can do. And that's a story that I think the Academy would get behind to create a little bit more equity. I don't think a studio produces this in 7 years.
I agree.
I
agree.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is a fun, I knew it would be a fun conversation, and yes, there will be offshoots and abilities for Jyunmi and Beth and what they're doing with their show to, dig deeper into some of these and have longer conversations where we're not sort of restricting how long we talk about it. Hey, tomorrow we're going to have our honest review. We do this every other Friday, but this particular day, we're going to be talking about Zapier Central. Really, really interesting stuff coming out of Zapier, big player in the automation world, along with companies like Make. But, be interesting to see what Zapier can do. So we're going to talk about that. Is it worth your time? Should you invest? Zapier isn't necessarily cheap. So, where should you put your money? And is it going to help you with automation within your business? We'll talk about that all on tomorrow's show. So that's it for today. Thanks everybody for the fun conversation. I hope our listeners had some fun with it. Don't steal my idea about, Through the Flames now. It's recorded. This is technically mine. So I don't want this movie to pop up next year or something. All right. That's it, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you then. Bye.
Aloha.